just a teaser. I unfollowed her once because I was like, I don't get what she wants me to tell her.
At some point, I was just like, I'm bored by my own content.
She shifted and you grew a big audience.
So I have a formula. It's very easy. Leah, one of my clients, she grew 10,000 followers in 3 weeks. Made over 20,000 euros in that month. Just by becoming the niche instead of picking a niche.
How do you become that niche?
Your messaging, number one. And number two is,
how can I convert eventually?
Kubera, if you want to lose weight, you have to just stop drinking alcohol. Drink alcohol?
Sorry?
Are you talking to me or are you talking to... I'm out. Listen to them. But do they always ask? You need to start telling first, right? You can't just...
Ask them.
Like, hi, what should I name my offer?
Yeah.
64% of people are more likely to work with you if they connect with your... 23% more likely to pay more if they connect to you. Where were we like, okay, I follow her again.
So, hi Sina. I'm so excited to talk today with you more about magnetic messaging and how we're able to communicate in a way for people to listen to us and to be heard and seen, but also to make others feel seen and heard, because that's what we eventually want to do with our communication, our brand, right? So, Sina, where should we start? I have seen Sina before, and today let's get into messaging first, because eventually that is crucial for us then to understand more about how to create content, right? Because at the end of the day, content is, or the platform we use or whatever we do has an impact on the way we convey it, but the message at the end of the day is what I believe is the most important part of it, right? And when we talk about messaging, would you like to get us into where to start to define your message and how to make sure to develop it or to get better and redefine it, to figure out how can I get better in my communication to convert eventually, or to make people understand why and what impact I want to make in other people's life?
Okay, so a lot of different questions here.
Again.
I think the most important is when you start thinking about your messaging. One of the things that I don't believe in is to pick a niche, right? A lot of people think that they have a business, they are photographers, or they provide a marketing service or whatever it might be to their clients. And then they think, I only have to talk about this topic all the time. And I have to ideally be an expert and always share content that is valuable, because value.
Yeah.
And so we go into a space where a lot of times our messaging is just boring.
Right.
And we get bored by it. It's kind of like we see ourselves, and this is the most important, a personal brand is very different than the business brand. And even nowadays, business brands are acting more like personal brands, which helps them connect with people, because people don't actually want to hear what you have to sell to them. Like if they just have a feeling of you wanting to sell something to them, they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. And so messaging really shouldn't come from a place of, I have to now pick a niche. I have to now talk about this one topic over and over because I'm an expert at it and I need to prove to people that I'm an expert. That worked 10 years ago. Now messaging is really about, you have to become the niche. And so the whole basis of what I do is, we don't pick a niche, we become the niche, which means you as a person, you have a story, you went through struggles, you had your own ups and downs, you had your low moments, your high moments. And most of the time we learn mostly from our low moments, and we're here because of our low moments. And so that becomes your messaging. So instead of thinking, what is it that I want to rank on Google for, think about, what is the reason I'm here?
Yeah.
And I know this is a very deep question.
It is, right?
The why behind it all. So I work a lot with the why.
Yeah, I mean, it's deep, but I always say we tend to forget in the process of doing the things, because everything is moving and then you collecting data. I mean, I'm just, because you said it's a bit of a deep question, but that's why we started, right? I mean, it's deep, but it's there. Sometimes we tend to forget it. And it's so crucial for us to always be clear again, why did we start? Because we tend to get maybe diluted in the process of, how do I grow it? How do I make sure that it's scalable? And in the business mindset, right? So that's why I love that you say, how do you become that niche? And how do you make sure that you're communicating your way of doing it without only focusing on what am I doing? Well, because eventually we know it, right? The market is saturated. Like there's nothing you can do differently. And people try to ask me all the time, Kubera, what is my differentiator? And I'm like, come on, you know what's your differentiator already. Why are you rejecting it? Why are you not seeing it, right? So when we talk about messaging, and you mentioned that it's not just about picking a niche and just talking about this as it is, first of all, boring. People cannot relate to it as well, because eventually, yes, they're looking for a solution, but they're looking for who will allow me. So the vehicle in a way, which sounds weird now to say that we as coaches are maybe the vehicle, but at the end of the day, we're taking a person into our car and say, hey, do you want to take a seat in the car? And we have some nice ride together. How are we going to make sure to stay focused? Well, we now know that we are becoming the niche, or we are portraying it in our way. But still, I think when we talk about messaging, there's so many angles I can see it from, and I get influenced, right? I'm on social media. I scroll through my feed and I'm like, wow, there's so many interesting things. How do I still stay focused and be clear in my messaging while still not being boring while talking about the same thing over and over again? What do you suggest us to do on that?
Yeah, so I think a very simple answer.
Yes.
I'm going to simplify it like super easy. So a lot of times when we think like, oh, I don't want to, Sina, you said I don't need to pick a niche, but how do I not, confuse people about all the things that I talk about? Then you need to speak to one person. Mm-hmm. Your one dream student, your one dream client, if you have a business. And if you speak to that person, you're not going to be confusing, right? If I talk to Kubera about my marriage and my business and my baby and my workout, it's not confusing to you, right? You're just getting to know me. But if I talk to 5 different people, then I will have to talk about it from a different angle every single time. I have to talk about it from a different perspective. I have to give you a different learning. Like if I would speak to a 16-year-old, I'm not going to, give her the same stories and lessons and tell her like what fun hacks I've learned being a mom. Or in my business, I would make it simpler for her, right? But because I have this one person I'm speaking to, it's very clear for me that I speak to her. She's interested in specific things, and you might not be interested in other things, right? Like we have a lot of things in common. And so I curate what I tell you. We curate our conversations based on what I believe is relevant to you, interesting to you, that we can connect with. Maybe I can help you in some parts of your life because I know you and I know what you're looking for. And that's when trust happens. Right?
True.
So when you have a conversation with a friend and they're giving you random advice that has nothing to do with, who you are. Like, Kubera, if you want to lose weight, you have to stop drinking alcohol. And you're like, I don't drink alcohol.
Sorry.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to another person?
You're right.
That's confusing. But if I speak exactly to one person, it's not confusing. It's like having a conversation.
Yes.
And so that's the easiest way that I can describe it. I'm also going to give you an example of the idea of becoming the niche instead of picking a niche.
Yeah.
So Leah, one of my clients, she's a relocation consultant from Germany. She helps basically business owners move their business from Germany to Dubai. Now she could create, her messaging could be, I'm the #1 relocation expert. I've worked with over 300 companies and I help you, relocate your business to tax-free, super simple. I'm always there. And what other messaging could she have? Like it's convenient.
Yeah.
All of these
all
words
of the
that actually mean nothing.
True.
So her messaging is now she knows that she predominantly wants to speak to women who want to move to Dubai. It's usually couples, but usually the woman discovers her online, sends the profile to her husband, and he makes the deal, basically. Okay. So she has this dream client, this dream woman. Let's just say I'm her dream woman, right? I'm German. I'm relocating my business to Germany, to Dubai, and I can relate to specific parts of her story. Now, in terms of, she actually came to me and said, I don't want to talk about all of the 3 steps to going to Dubai, the 3 ways to have a tax-free business, or the 5 things you need to, remember when you relocate so you don't have tax issues in Germany, whatever. She was like, I don't want to be like all the other guys on social media. I don't want to sound like them. I don't want to look like them. It's already boring me without even starting. And she started with like an account that had 200 followers. And she's like, okay, I know social media is the thing. I know I need to build a personal brand. I'm relying on referrals, but how do I do it without sounding so boring? Like I'm already bored before starting. And so what we focused on is her becoming the niche, which is what is her story?
Yeah.
Right? She's German. She moved to Dubai alone as a young woman. She wasn't Muslim at the time. She actually discovered Islam here. Then she saw how much Dubai changed her in the way that, she's much more driven because everyone around you is hustling. So you need to hustle, right?
Yeah.
She saw that it's much easier and simpler for a business, not just because of tax, but Germany, business laws for entrepreneurs are different than Dubai.
True.
And she's seen it after COVID specifically. As a woman here in Dubai, it's just having the experience of everyone opens your door.
Yeah.
You can go, like, if you go to like a random mall, you will have the most luxurious bathrooms to use. In Germany, you can't even go to a bathroom most of the time. They tell you it's, unless you buy something from the shop, you're not allowed,
you're
right? So like this whole, and then having a female-only gyms and all of these perks that you have as just feeling like a princess when you're here. That's her personal story. That's her personal experience.
Yeah.
She started to share that. Now people are going to be like, how does that have to do with her business? Like, has nothing to do with like trust or expertise. That's the point. Like people don't really want to hear all the time. You can hide it. We can talk about this a little. You can hide the expertise in your portfolio, in your profile, even in your content. But the main part is people don't actually connect to your years of experience and like the 300 companies you've helped relocate. They connect to, I'm alone as a woman and I'm afraid to move. What do I do? How is it here? They connect to like having to change the cultural change, being a Muslim woman or like converting, right? So as me as someone who converted as well to Islam, I connected to all of these parts. I connected to her moving alone because I've moved a lot of countries alone as a young woman. I connected to her finding Islam here. I connected to just the convenience you have as a woman here versus in Germany. And so this is how she got clients.
Yeah.
Within a month when she started posting her story, and it was literally just that. None of her posts talk about tax benefits or like the 3 steps to relocate. She grew 10,000 followers in 3 weeks. And she made over 20,000 euros in that month. Just by becoming the niche instead of picking a niche. And so it's so important when you think about your messaging. Number 1, who do you speak to? You speak to one person. And number 2 is what are the things that you went through that could be relevant to that person in the space that she's in, right? In the kind of context of I want to move my business to Dubai. What are all the things that I might be asking or thinking? Talk about your own experiences in that.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned it because I like to see messaging as well as like 2 layers. You have that one layer, which is the core of who you are, which really shows why you want to impact others as well, right? And this is exactly what you talk about, your own story, the vision that you have. I mean, she is internally motivated to help others because she had that problem. She felt that pain. In that case of your client, we started because we had a certain spark in us. We felt that we want to change and impact the world in our thoughts and we have that podcast here now where we're sharing our voices and our thoughts because we just want to help others. We just want to share and communicate and connect with each other, right? So we have that core. And then, as you said, we have that second layer where we then think about whom do I want to help and what exactly because eventually, yes, my story will resonate, but everyone, it might be still different, right? And I love that you say we're talking to one person. Eventually, once we're growing the business, we will then expand and add maybe more customer profiles or more customers into that. So we need to make sure as well to be clear about what are their struggles and desires so we're able then to figure out as well what type of messaging works. Because I want to talk about this with you, and you gave us the hint before saying how to hide certain things about what you're offering in your messaging. That would be the first thing I would love to talk about, to then get deeper into the thought as well. How are we able to make sure that our messaging is understood? Because sometimes we tend to say things from our own perspective, and that's what I wanted to talk about in the other episode when we talk about content, because I remember that you shifted the way you talk as well.
Yes.
So let's get into the first thing, how to hide certain things about our offers, to then maybe get deeper into the second question.
Yeah. Okay, so just for everyone who doesn't know, like what we've talked about in the last couple of episodes, is I look at a personal brand as a garden. And I started doing that because when I was struggling to get clients and when I was at this low point, I call those I'm done moments.
Yeah.
I was overworked. I was always chasing clients. I was feeling like I needed to prove myself. Elevator pitch, you know, like you Google, YouTube.
Yes.
How do I elevator pitch myself? I don't know.
By heart, right? You have to learn by heart.
And you need to do it in like 3 sentences. And I'm not working a bit. Yes, it's horrible. And I felt like it was so unnatural. It felt really forced. And at some point, I just told my husband, and we were in our honeymoon then, I was like, I don't know if this business thing is for me. Like it just feels so forced. I feel like I'm chasing.
Yeah.
And then he said, how do you catch butterflies? I said, well, I don't know. You have that thing you run around.
Yeah.
I was very ambitious. I said, no, the point is you don't catch butterflies. You build a garden and you let them come to you. And I figured that garden is your personal brand. And that garden will attract people to you. Now, the way that, and that's why my program was also called The Garden. So how I actually show women how to build that personal brand is when you think about a plant, right? You think about a beautiful flower. You're building that garden. First, the roots. That's your story, your why. We already went through that, right? We can go way deeper into that. But that's the thing that makes people want to work with you. Actually, 64% of people are more likely to work with you if they connect with your story, with your why. And they are 23% more likely to pay more if they connect to your story.
Crazy, right?
That's insane.
Yeah.
So why are we not telling our stories more?
Yeah.
Then the next part is, and that's kind of like the stem, is the portfolio. Then you have the flowers, which is the content. And then we're thinking about actually the butterfly, which is your dream client, your dream student. Who are they? Notice exactly they have a name, an age, a job title. Are they married? Do they kids or not? Now, content, we talk about it in the next episode. Now, the connecting piece is where you hide your expertise. Okay. And that is your portfolio. Your portfolio is basically your name on Instagram and on LinkedIn, your headline on LinkedIn and your bio on Instagram, your highlight sections on Instagram, and your pinned post. On LinkedIn is also the featured section. Featured section is kind of like the highlight section on Instagram. This is where you can brag. So I have a formula. It's very easy. Everyone else always asks me, like, how do I make the perfect bio? No problem. I'll show you
how
now.
do I make
So you have 3 lines in your bio. If you use more, then people have to click see more, which is not ideal. Don't do that. The first line is bragging. Okay? Years of experience, the number of companies you've helped with, work with, whatever else you can brag about. You have a master's degree or like, I don't know, some kind of braggable achievement, okay? So, for example, with Leah, it would be helped over 300 plus companies relocate to Dubai. That's the only place where you brag, okay? You don't brag in your own content. Then the second line is your promise. So for your promise is kind of like your message, your promise to what am I giving you as my dream client. And that is, I show you the beauty of moving to Dubai, or I show you why it's worth it, or whatever. Or I help you build your dream business in a place you feel comfortable with, whatever it might be. It could be if I'm a fashion stylist and I focus on mid-sized women, I can say, the most flattering clothes for mid-sized girlies, or like here's where I share my fashion inspo for mid-sized girlies, whatever it might be. The third line is your call to action. And it could be DM me a word to apply for my mentoring, or click below to, get my program, whatever it might be. This is where you show your expertise. Then you have your highlight section where you show client testimonials. Okay, one highlight for client testimonials. A highlight for each offer. So if you have a mentoring, you have coaching, consulting, keynote speaking, you put one highlight for each offer. And then you have your pin post. But basically, that's all you need to know right now. You only brag in the first line of your bio. And on LinkedIn, it's also your headline. And you show your expertise through client testimonials and your actual offer in your highlights. Elsewhere, you don't actually need to brag. Now, there's another way to like hide that you're an expert and you brag a little, which is by just dropping it in a sentence.
Like you're doing it.
Like I'm doing it?
No, but you are connecting your ideas, your frameworks to results that you have achieved with you.
That's a different angle. So it would be if I would, for example, say, the last time I was on stage at Adidas, someone asked me, how are you so confident as a woman in hijab? Did you see how I hide what I just did? I was on stage at Adidas. The last time I was at the Google headquarters, someone actually noticed that blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So you hide it. You can also hide with, the last time I saw my client, she told me she doubled her business, but she wasn't clear about blah, 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 blah. And then you actually talk about so you hide an achievement or something braggable in there, right? If you have, and this is something that people are always worried about on LinkedIn, like, I don't want to be on LinkedIn. People just brag about having like their dream job there. It's very different to say, I'm happy to announce that I was on stage at the Google headquarters, okay? Instead of saying, when I was on stage at Google, someone asked me this question. Here's my answer. Right? And that is how you hide your expertise in your messaging. Now, the other thing that you said was the result or testimonials.
By the way, I'm sorry, I just meant it because when I focus on what people say because I find it really interesting and I'm trying to...
No, you don't have to apologize.
No, because you said I do.
I was just wondering what you're referring to. I apply everything that I tell people. I'm not a person that's like, this is like fancy advice. Of course. So what I like to do is when I tell client testimonials and stories, the reason why it works is not just because the expertise and the results, which is great, and it will give you more clients, right? It's also because it's simple and specific. So a lot of times when we are in podcasts, for example, one of the things that I kind of drift away when I listen to a podcast is if it's all the advice is like generic and like philosophical and give me a specific example. Like I don't work very well with like my husband is very different. Like he can think about like philosophical things and he has 500,000 ideas. I'm just like what did you actually say?
That's why I sometimes tend to ask 3 questions in one because I just have those thoughts, and honestly it's a lot because of other reasons too, but there's some people they just want to direct like things, and others have like, they just want to, like
sound like
prettier and make it more glittery or whatsoever, which is sometimes not the best to do. But the other way, sometimes being so direct and not exploring maybe other paths is not
and you
good
want
too.
to merge it, right? You want to say what your message is, and if it's broader, it's fine. But then you want to underline it with a specific example. And I could give you 5 more examples of other mentees based on, for example, your audience. So for example, that's why I always ask like, who is your listener? So I can choose the testimonials and the stories and the examples that make sense to them, right? And so for other people, other examples make sense. But you always need to think, who are you speaking to? Like, who's your audience? How do they... What is actually interesting to them?
Exactly.
Right? And then find examples and try to really tell them as specific as possible. So when I say, when I tell a story, I like to use names, I like to use places, I like to use very specific things rather than she went through a lot of struggle. No, she had depression and couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks.
Make it specific
very
so
different.
people understand. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? And that's how messaging becomes so strong, because then I give you the overall beautiful message, but I give you a specific example. And that's how you can also hide your expertise.
I love it.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense, right? It's great when you break it down and make sure as well then in what different ways it could be seen. Because, when a lot of people, we'll talk about content as we said in another episode, but when they create content, those are different perspectives, how you can use your message through your content to then communicate in the right way and test and try certain things as well. Because that was the second question, if you remember. Sometimes we tend to speak in our own words. And I did that at the beginning. I'm a brand strategist. People should know what's brand strategy. People don't know what's brand strategy.
They don't even know what a brand is.
Yes, exactly, right? I don't mean it bad, but everyone is saying something else. How should they, when I say everyone is saying something else, some people at the beginning, when I started, they were saying brand strategy is your brand guidebooks, right? There's a lot of things that get communicated. So it's not their mistake to not know, or I'm not saying I'm the one who knows everything, but everyone has their own frameworks and values they carry. And that's why we talked about it at the beginning. It's so important to tell your story and how you started and what you believe in. So others say, yes, I believe in that, or no, I don't believe in that. Yeah. And I think it's crucial, right? So how do I figure out if the way I'm communicating is aligned to what they think and see as well? So when I say they, I mean my target audience, right? Because they are not having the same, I want them to approach me because I want to help them, right? But I need to convey them the message. And as we say, you need to understand what's their issue and provide them what they need, right? Eventually, making sure that you give them what they want in a way that you know what they need as well, right? Because sometimes they don't know what they need. So it's your job as a coach or as a consultant to give them what you know they need, but they don't maybe see it right now. So you have to guide them and hold them on their hands, right?
Yeah.
So my question goes into that direction. How do I figure out if what I'm communicating is understood the right way?
Okay. So I have two methods. Okay. One is the mom method, which I just came up with. But basically, the way that I speak to my toddler, right? It's like 1.5. It's very different than if I would speak to a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old. Okay. So if I, for example, want him to drink something, okay, and I give him juice and he doesn't know what the juice is, okay, then I say, do you want to drink something? I show him, because this is how he communicates. I show him the color, I say what it is, I maybe show him the fruit that it comes from, and so he makes connections, right?
Yes.
Instead of just imagining that he knows what a juice is, I explain to him the process.
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for him, he has only two options. Like, he wants to drink something. Okay. Does it taste nice? Nice. Okay, I take it. Does it have a cool color? That's a plus. Okay. So that's very different than if I give my husband a juice because I know it's good for him. Yeah. Okay. The way that I give my husband is like, hey, this is going to help you stay fit when you're fasting. Drink it.
Yeah.
Done. For the baby, it's like, explain things why. Yes. So you need to ask yourself, does this person have a connection to what I'm saying already? Does that person know what a juice is? Does that person know what protein intake is, or what energy is, or magnesium? Or does that person first need to learn what the fruit is, or that it's drinkable? What is this? Okay, I can say orange juice, but does he know what an orange is? I maybe should show the orange first. Yeah. And so you need to ask yourself, what is the level of knowledge my dream client has? Ideally, and we talked about this in offers in our last conversation, you want to pick people that already are advanced, right? I'm not going to pick a toddler. I might pick my husband for. It's just easier.
Yeah, you're right.
It's quicker, it's easier.
True.
And so when you have an offer and you have to over-explain what the offer is, why they need it, then it's a lot of work involved.
Convincing as well, right? I mean, they should already understand and
or education in terms of I need to educate why you need to invest in yourself first. I need to educate why you need a brand. Yeah. Right?
It's a lot about the mindset, true.
A lot about this. And then so you need to create first connections. Then, for example, I'm going to give you the example. My program is called the Garden Mentoring because I talk directly to my clients, and the one thing they say is, number one, what is a brand? I don't know what a brand is. Yeah. Is it my social media profile? Is it the colors that I use? Is it the fonts that I use? And instead of me over-explaining over and over and over and over and over again, I go with the mom method and I find something that represents, right? And so when I told my story about the garden, and that was the most crucial, the most important thing that made me understand personal branding, I didn't know it would resonate with people. But as soon as I talked about it, every single time I had a client on call, they would refer the garden. The garden. Oh my God, I need to attract the butterflies. Oh my God.
They can connect. Yeah,
and
sure.
they are women, so they feel like this femininity. They also love nature like me. Like we have so much in common, right? And so when I kept hearing this over and over, I was like, I'm not going to call it something like generic, like brand strategy package.
Yes.
But I'm going to go with the garden because this is what feels comfortable to me and it's what resonates with the person.
Yes.
So I don't have to over-explain. I don't have to over-explain to you. Like when I tell you your personal brand is a garden, you're not going to ask me, is it my fonts? Yeah. Oh, my colors. No. It's like I don't have to explain all that because I already gave you the analogy.
You're right.
So that's kind of the method that I like to go with. Be whimsical, have fun. This is like the fun things about femininity and feminine business. Is you can use your story and what resonated with you. The reason why it resonated with you probably is why people connect with it. I didn't know before. I thought it changed my life, but other women were talking about how much it changed theirs. So that's what I use. So you have to talk. So number one, just have fun with it. Don't overcomplicate your messaging. Number two, talk to your dream clients. So listen to them. What do they always ask about? You need to start telling your story first, right? You can't just
ask them.
Like, hi, what should I name my offer? Yeah. What should my messaging be?
What do you need?
You need to start telling a story so they can say like, hey, Kubera, when you talked about this, really resonated with me. When you talked about this story with your mom, when you talked about this coming from this culture background, like I really connected with this. Yeah. Then you're like, okay, parallels. 5 different people said the same thing. Yeah. There's something. Let me think about it.
Yeah, the patterns, right?
Yeah. And then another way we can go into why people get confused in messaging is because we want to sound smart.
Yeah.
Stop trying to sound smart.
Yeah, we think that's how people think that's how they convince, right?
Yes. Like, because it makes me sound like I know what I'm
trustworthy.
doing. Yeah, trustworthy.
I know what I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember anything from high school or from university? All those professors sounded smart, and you don't remember anything they told you.
I just remember the ones, or I learned best from the ones that I was able to have a joke with or enjoy time with or relate to, right? It's the same thing. Or they told
a funny story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I like to go with the Hemingway method. I do this in my content also. The Hemingway method is, Hemingway was such a successful writer because he used 12th grade English. So I think 8th grade English. It's 12 years old. Okay. So he talked to a 12-year-old. The language that he used, if he would tell a story, if he would write something, it wouldn't be poetry like Shakespeare where you need to be super smart to understand it. He would speak to a 12-year-old. And so the words that he would use, things like, for example, you used the word convey earlier or crucial. Those are not words that 12-year-olds understand, know, or relate to.
Okay.
So, for example, convey a message is like, tell me something.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to tell me something, then you need to do this instead of if you want to convey a message. If you say crucial, important. Crucial is important. Use simpler words when you talk. And that's going to make you much more impactful. Again, impactful is also not a 12-year-old. It's going to give you more results than if you use more complicated words.
But what if you want to filter people through that, people that would say crucial too? Is that, I mean, I know what you mean. You mean like make it simpler for people to understand. But what if I'm just saying it because sometimes we use certain words to, I don't want to say filter because crucial is understandable. I get your point of saying just don't make people think too much because eventually let their brain run on the treadmill, right? The more people have to think about what did she say? What crucial? Was it crucial or was it, what was the meaning? Because I have maybe some Germans as well, right?
It's not a bad question. It's not a bad question.
Because I'm curious, because sometimes I tend to use certain words because I'm like, maybe I want the people, I don't know, that are maybe choosing a certain type of vocabulary. I didn't do this on purpose right now. I was just curious, what is your thought on that? I just got that impulse.
It's a good question. I've never thought about this. I think you can filter people in a different way.
Okay.
I think it's much easier. So the reason why I would say this is because unless you speak to scholars, right, or like very like philosophers, I don't think it's relevant because you can filter out people with the types of stories you tell rather than the words you use to tell the story. Right? So that's just something where focus is a linear thing. Like you can only focus on specific things. I always like to say like you can only focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And so do you want to focus on the story being the thing that filters people out? So for example, instead of saying, you say business people are your audience. Let's just say it's a businesswoman. She's 30 years old, engaged, and like lives in Munich. Okay, let's just say that. Then instead of filtering her out in the way that you tell a story, you filter her out in what story to tell.
Okay, yeah.
You know, when I was when I lived in Munich, and I just felt like my business wasn't growing, although I was working 12 hours a day and I was going to all the networking events and I was trying to like communicate with people and prove myself. I thought, telling people how amazing my business is and how many clients I've helped would work, convince them, right? But actually what worked was just telling them my story, right? That's a story you tell because it talks to a woman who has a business, who's working 12 hours a day, who lives in a city like this, who goes to networking events because she has to prove herself. Yeah. But if I would then say, when I was living in Munich and I tried to build my business up and convey people what I what I believe in and connect with peers of my own, then it was really crucial for me to yes, I
understand what you mean.
It makes it difficult to focus on the story.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. I agree to that. So yeah, I do say a lot of crucial. I do say a lot of crucial. It's so crucial. You should. So crucial.
I think it's a thing where we get like our tics when we're German and we learn, because English is not our first language. So we get tics. We hear it in like a movie and we think like this sounds really nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
I used to have like a lot of this as well.
Yeah, but I love that you summed up what to focus on, especially at the end. And I love the first one. You just have to talk. You just have to get it out. You just have to take the action. You just have to communicate to see what is the other person understanding and feel, okay, is that aligned to what I was trying to say? And we do this on a daily basis. So why is it hard for us to do it for our business? It's not. We just have to, as you said, put aside the I need to show myself as this person. No, you like to call it your unfair advantage, right? You have to show your true self to then say, hey, who is the vibe? Who is the community? Where are my friends? Where are my where are my people? Right? That's eventually, we're social beings. We're all searching for people that we can connect and resonate with and have connections with. And that's the beauty. And I think that's why we're building businesses as well, to say, hey, where are my people that I can help? Because that's the fulfilling part, right? Where we see, hey, people are moving, we're impacting other people's life and they are giving it further to others. And that's, I think, such a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you would have one last thing to end this episode when it comes to messaging, what would be something you would like to share with our audience?
I think don't overthink your messaging. It will evolve with you and it will evolve with time. And that's why I like to build a personal brand, because people grow with you. Like you said, you follow my content and it has changed over time.
Yes.
You're still here.
Yes. Well, honestly, just a teaser. I unfollowed her once because I was like, I don't get what she wants me to tell her, what she's telling me. But she shifted and you can see it now. She's crazily successful, mashallah. You grew a big audience. But you just felt that you going through a shift, and that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, hey, there's Sina again. Now I get you again. I'm vibing with you. And now I'm sitting in a podcast studio with her, and we're talking here about years that I got to know her. I wasn't even into branding back then, honestly.
Really?
No, I wasn't into. So it was maybe a sign by Allah to get it, because I was always into consumer psychology. I was always interested in understanding more about how does it work. And of course, I studied business administration, so I did understand branding and marketing, but I didn't know what is a brand strategist. But I remember.
What was the shift? Where were you like, okay, I follow her again?
I think it was, first of all, you being clear, because I didn't understand what you're trying to convey.
Yeah,
and I'm saying this honestly, right? I don't mean anything with it. I love what you're doing, and I loved it back then, but I was just like, I don't understand it. I'm watching it, but I'm like, I joined the webinar and I'm like, I don't know. I think sometimes people have this with me, but that's the beauty of evolving, and that's the beauty. And now you had that moment, but still doesn't mean that you can stay in that phase. And I think that's important to mention. Yes, you grew your audience, mashallah, to such a big number, but in order for you to grow further, you still need to say, okay, are people understanding what I'm trying to tell them, right? Yeah. It never stops. And I think that's the beauty, because sometimes people look at successful people and say, they made it. No, they're still improving. There's so much going on in the background. And I can just tell you, to a setup like this with the lightning and us, it's not just that we sit down and be like, okay, mic check, and then we talk. And there's so many details that we focus on consciously, purposefully, right? I don't know if that was hard words, but we focus on we want to make sure that it's actively, we just on point, because we care for that. That's how our values represent what we're doing, right? So I went into this. So it was a teaser for
so funny. No, because I never delete my content, so everyone can scroll down.
Yes, go and check it out.
How confusing it was. And at some point, I was just like, I'm bored by my own content. I don't really know what the point is of what I'm saying, and I shared that. So that's another thing with the messaging. Like, just be human and share your own progress.
Yeah,
that's your development. It's fine. Let them be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, anyhow, it's visible, right? People think, I was like, I don't get Sina. So I would have told you, and I know I'm an honest person. I would have said, Sina, sorry.
I'm going to ask you later, like, what exact post it was.
Knock, knock. I don't understand what you're trying to tell me, Sina. Hello. But I didn't know you back then. So, and now, you're thriving, mashallah, and I'm really happy that we connected and that we sit in a room. What do you have as well for people if they're interested to get to know more or work together with you? Would you like to share that as well?
Yeah, you can just apply for my mentoring. You can watch my master classes. They're all free online, and just at Sina Port Official, I'll see you there.
Yes.